Morning folks, Jay here on Thursday the 5th of October with your Leeds United news, but it's not a Leeds United news, it's a match review from last night's game. There's nothing floating around, so we're going to go in straight away and do the review. A strong first half display gives Leeds 3 points and gets them back to winning ways with a clean sheet in what was a game very much of two halves. A strong first half performance from Leeds with some lovely fluid football that didn't give Leeds the extended lead that you would have wanted going into break. And what has to be said, a very flat second half performance against a really poor QPR side is not what Daniel Farke would have wanted on the back of last weekend's game. It's 2 games in a row where the performance hasn't been perfect, but you do take from this what was needed. 3 points and a clean sheet will give Leeds some confidence boost heading into the weekend's matches. We'll break this down in a bit more detail, but it's important for Leeds to get back to winning ways, and that is the top line message from here. How we did it, as Daniel Farke described it, sometimes we can't get champagne football. This was a pure beer point for Leeds. And I agree to a degree. But when you're playing the 21st side in the league, in Elland Road, finishing the game in the corner flag, trying to wind the clock down is not what you would expect from a team that you want to be competing to get automatic promotion back to the Premier League. But they did it. First half was very, very good from Leeds, very patient. Good build-ups, lovely moments of football, but ultimately not the breakthrough that Leeds needed. From a defensive perspective, we saw, from an outputting and going forward perspective, we saw a much better Leeds United team. Faster passes out from the back, much more crisp, far more accurate. Joe Rodon making a big difference back in there as well, and Pascal Struijk having a very good game at left centre-back. From a second half performance, they were exposed a little bit more than they would have wanted it. The transitions from attack to defence didn't really happen as quickly as they should have, which left gaps in around the back and did put them under pressure. And if I'm being very honest, in the second half, I did feel a mistake was coming and a goal against us would happen, but it didn't, which is a credit to the guys that were there. They did throw their bodies on the line when needed. I thought Joe Rodon and Pascal Struijk had a very good game there together. But again, that transition that was so good a few weeks ago when Leeds were going through that run of 4 games unbeaten, or 6 games unbeaten and 4 clean sheets, that transition from attack back to defence to getting back in and hunting the ball down just wasn't as fast as it could have been, especially in the second half when we gave QPR far more respect than they probably deserved in that situation. From an attacking perspective, first half was excellent. The build-up play was patient. It was good. It was crisp again. Getting bodies in and around the edge of the box, but not getting enough bodies in the box when needed. For me, there were opportunities when balls did fizz across the 6-yard line. You'd expect to see somebody from Leeds getting in on the end of it. There were no bodies in the box. Our strikers were, Pirro was deep, Rutter was out wide, and I think we're missing a trick here with those front two, and we'll get to that in a bit more detail in a bit. But it was a really good performance in front of goal in the first half. The second half was not as good a performance in front of goal, but that wasn't necessarily the attackers' fault. It was more of a collective dropping off from Leeds in the second half for me. We also saw the benefit of Georginio Impact playing in deeper and wider areas. The first goal from Summerville, which is an interesting one because it's QPR trying to keep the ball in and pretend that the ball didn't go out play. I think it's out, if I'm being honest. But QPR tried to keep it in and they tried to play on. Leeds capitalised on that, and a lovely cut in and a ball from Georginio Impact finds Summerville, who had a very, very good first half after what had been a poor performance last week, and he managed to find the back of the net with a ball that was lifted enough over Begovic to get to the back of the net, but not too much. He did have a chance in the second half. Later on in this first half, Summerville, if I'm being very honest, that shot was blocked, but I think that ball was going over the crossbar. I think it might have been an embarrassing miss, but he was in the right area to get there, and as long as he keeps popping up in those areas over the rest of the season, he will score a lot more goals, which is good. So great positioning from him. I think the shot was possibly going over the crossbar, but a great block from the defender in that situation. When we get into the game, we start to break it down a little bit. You look at the stats of the game, 66% possession from Leeds, all up is a strong number to have. I think in the first half alone, it was probably significantly higher than that, and letting QPR back into the game in the second half a little bit is what brought that down to 66%, but still a very, very strong percentage there for the team as well. When we look at the shots perspective, 5 shots on target for Leeds versus 2 shots on target for QPR. Leeds an additional 5 shots off target and 1 shot off target for QPR says everything you need to know. Illan Meslier had to make 2 very good saves in that game. A shot from Ilyas Char in the second half from distance, giving way too much space on the edge of the box to get his shot away, but a very comfortable save by Meslier, which is what you want to see. And then a very, very good save from Dykes in the second half, where he had to step out after a defensive mix-up. Nearly let Dykes in to find the corner, but Meslier getting his body in the way and standing up strong was very, very good. 2 chances in total created for Leeds in the first half. Really, when you look at it, 2 clear chances to score, got one of them in the back of the net. You'd want to be creating more against a team like that. And then the second half, just not an awful lot from Leeds in general. When we start to go through this, let's just talk about Georginio Rutter's passing ability, because he's shown at moments this season that his passing can be very crisp and very accurate. He has this ability to thread these balls, which is why I think he's a natural number 10 and not a number 9 for Leeds, who can persist in playing him in that central area. I know there's a rotation between the two, but more often than not, Pirro is the deeper and Rutter's the more advanced one, and I think we can get so much more from him in that deep area. And I know I'm probably just banging the same drum that I've been banging for a few weeks, but I really feel there. You look at 2 of the balls that he put through for Patrick Bamford, one specifically, which was a beautiful ball, which the inside was full, that he managed to bend in and out to drop right in front of Pat Bamford, who takes a touch slightly wide, and a decent shot from Bamford, who looked very busy when he did come on, and a good save from Begovic. But fantastic work from Georginio Rutter. And when the interesting piece for me was when Bamford did come on, it was Rutter that dropped into the 10 and Bamford went into the 9. I don't see why Joe Pirro can't play in the 9 then and Rutter in the 10, because we saw more from Rutter again in the second half when he dropped into that 10 position than we had during the second half up until Bamford came on. So again, I think there's something in that. I really think we're missing a trick there. A couple of chances for Dan James cutting in from the left-hand side in a shot, well saved, slight deflection, and then a second shot that was deflected that clipped the crossbar, just touched over the bar by Begovic. Not a huge amount. And then the big talking point in the second half was the long ball by Stroke, the touch by Pat Bamford around Begovic, and then him dropping to the ground. For me, I think he's gone down too easy. There is possibly an angle where it shows minimal contact to his back right foot, but if you look at that and there's a slow-mo version of it, Pat's already going down when that contact is made, and I wish he'd stop diving. I really wish he would. It's a part of his game that I don't think he needs to have in it. There is minimal contact or no contact for me at all. He goes down, Begovic gets a red card. I think it's unfortunate for Begovic, but as a Leeds fan, not going to argue. The argument for me is, why does Pat Bamford keep standing over free kicks on the edge of the box like he can take a free kick? Every time he does it, he either blasts into the stand or smashes into the wall. We have other players on the park that are more accurate. Why does Pat Bamford, who all of the evidence would suggest he can't take a free kick from the edge of the box, continue to try and take free kicks from the edge of the box and have very little output from it? Last year he did it, pop over the crossbar, a mile over the crossbar. This year he's done it again and smashed into the wall, and just a very poor free kick. So I don't know why he is persistent with that. I don't know what he's doing in training that's letting him do them, but I would be taking him away from them every time there's a free kick near the edge of the box. Get him off them, get somebody else on them. Not to take away from his performance, he was very, very good. He worked really, really hard. His pressing and his chasing was good when he came on, and that should be pointed out as well. The big issue for me was the second half performance and how far Leeds dropped off from the first half performance. You know, in front of a low block in the first half, Leeds' possession was quick, moving it left and right, getting it around the back, trying to find gaps and looking for these little 1-2s on the edge to get in behind, and it was good. And if they kept doing that, I felt more goals were going to come in the second half. But I felt Leeds just dropped. Intensity for me dropped, the speed of the passing dropped, the recovery, transitions from attack to defence and defence to attack dropped off. And it just felt like Leeds ran out of legs a little bit in the second half. We did see changes made a lot earlier by Dan Farke in this game. We saw Poveda coming on to the 10 position. But then at that point, the game had gotten so sloppy and scrappy. It was a poor game of football in the second half. I don't think anyone can watch the second half of that game and say they really enjoyed watching it. I thought it was a really poor game of football from both teams. It was scrappy. It was sloppy. It was stop-start. There was no flow to it. It just wasn't enjoyable to watch it. And to see Leeds with a considerable amount of time, there was 8 minutes added on, plus more time added on for the red card as well. So you're probably looking 10-12 minutes added on in total. You then look at the last 5 minutes, and from about the 82nd, 83rd minute, I think, Leeds start trying to get the ball into the corner flag and waste time. And I just thought, you're playing against the 21st side in the table. They've not been good this year. They're trying to push forward. There are gaps starting to open now. And our philosophy is to try and waste time and hang on to a 1-0 lead in Ellen Road against a side so far below us in the table who have been really poor this season. I didn't like that. I didn't think it showed ambition. I know you're trying to be smart and sensible and manage a game out, but I thought, if we're doing this against a side in 21st, how are we going to deal with teams that are in a better place? We played the likes of Leicester. We're going to need to be much, much better. Much, much better. This was a poor QPR side that we were up against, and that concerned me a little bit. Just a little bit. We'll go through the individuals, and this is a strange one for me because although I thought the performance in the second half was poor, individually I don't think you could point fingers at anybody and say they did a very, very poor game. If you go through the team, Summerville I thought had an excellent first half and had good moments in the second half, but I just didn't feel we got the ball to him in space enough, quick enough in the second half. Very quiet second half, but a very, very impactful first half. He looked really strong and really busy. Georginio Rutter, first half was outstanding. Second half, when he dropped into that 10 position and they brought Bamford on, came to life again and started to create an awful lot. He's got a lovely range of passing and he has lovely vision. It was great to see. Jaden Anthony thought looked really, really strong in the first half. Again, maybe ran out of legs a little bit towards the back end of the game, which is understandable considering the amount of football he's had. But a very strong performance from him. On another day, probably would have got 2 or 3 strikes away at goal as well. So Leeds with the 2 right footers on the left hand side, meaning both of them kept cutting inside, kind of getting into the way a little bit. So a change is possibly needed there at some point, but he did really, really well for me. Going to the middle of the park, 2 centre backs, by the way, Rodon and Strauch, I thought were very, very good, especially in those more edgy moments in the second half when they cleaned up and got rid of the ball when needed. Middle of the park, Gray and Nampadu thought had a smashing game. You're composed, relaxed, good on the ball. Gray, we're starting to see that more advanced pushing of Archie Gray now as well, which was great to see as well. Pat Bamford, when he came on up front, was good, was busy, was active, was getting in positions where he could make an impact. And Joe Perrault, a quieter game as well, but did a lot of work that would have gone under the radar. Link up play in the first half, connecting moves, and being that little connective tissue in the middle of the park. I thought he had a really effective game for that perspective, but I would like to see him on the 9. So when those balls are going into the box, you've got a natural finisher coming in, and we're missing a trick on that one for me. We did when Bamford came on. I don't understand why we don't do it with Perrault when he's there, given that he's a more natural number 9 than a number 10, and how good Rutter has been when he's dropped off into deeper areas. That's it for me. Melee, very little to do. What he'd have to do, he did well. A bit of time wasting from him as well. A bit of antics that I'd like to see Leeds just knock out. Why are we time wasting against teams? Let's go after them. Let's be more aggressive and get after these teams. But yeah, subs that came on did little to no impact in the game that was pretty much dead by the 60th minute as a contest. Just wasn't, as I said, wasn't an enjoyable game to watch. So it's a tough one for me to analyse. I think there were good moments in the first half, a very good first half performance, but a poor second half performance kind of took the enjoyment out of it a little bit for me. Let me know what you think yourself though in the comments. I'm really keen to see how everyone thought about the game. Man the match as well. Who you think stood out and was man the match? I think there were some good candidates there. Archie Gray was very good. Sam Byram had an excellent game and his stats and numbers backed that up as well. A really, really good game at left back as well. And the top bill was fine at right back as well. They were okay. Everyone was fine. The second half did, as I said, take the shine off the first half performance. But Leeds will need to be better come the weekend, and they want to get these flat performances out of the system as quick as they can. Last week in full, second half, and this week they can be better. They have been better. We know they can get better, and we want to see that. That's it for me today, folks. Thanks very much as always for watching the Sporting Channel, and I'll talk to you tomorrow with more Leeds news. Have a great day. Talk to you then. Bye.